Start. Good morning. My name is Gideon, and I'm the founder of Netcotech. Netcotech is a leading provider for IT and cybersecurity services. Our main goal being to help protect and grow as many businesses as we can. As of today, Netcotech is serving companies all across North America. Netcotech chose to join with F-Secure today to emphasize the importance of a safe remote workforce and the unfortunate consequences of security breaches and unexpected hackers getting into your business information. The growth and sophistication of cybercriminal ransomware and hackers' attack has reached epic levels. CEOs can no longer ignore it or think that won't happen to us. Your business, large or small, will be targeted and will be compromised unless you act now. As we all know, businesses experienced an unexpected pandemic about 2 years ago, which had forced many to change their operation and have most staff working from home. Due to such quick shift in operation, without having proper network security, it caused a lot of data breaches due to employees working from unprotected environment at home, where the network is easily accessible. Some businesses were unable to recover from the damage, and some lost a hefty amount of revenue in the process of recovering. Most of the businesses are using cloud services such as SharePoint, Office 365, Dropbox, Microsoft Azure, AWS, and other cloud services. Unsecured access to these services can lead to unwanted access and data loss. Cost after cost after cost. One breach, one ransomware attack, one rogue employee can create hours of extra work for staff who are already maxed out when things are going well. Then there is a business interruption and downtime, backlogs, work delivery for your current clients, loss of sales, forensics cost to determine what kind of hack attack occurred, what part of the network was affected, and what data was compromised. Emergency IT restoration costs for getting you back up, if that's even possible. In some cases, you'll be forced to pay the ransom, and maybe, just maybe, they will give you your data back. Then there are legal fees and costs of legal counsel to help you respond to your clients and to the media. F-Secure, from our experience, is the best endpoint in the market. This is a crucial part of security and for any network environment. We use F-Secure for all our clients. Please take the time to participate and understand the webinar being presented by F-Secure, as it will help you to understand why we chose F-Secure.
Thank you, Gideon. Hello, everyone. I'm one of the channel success managers here at F-Secure, and I'm very happy to be representing one of the biggest cybersecurity vendors in the market. So the whole world have gone remote. We all took our laptops and desktops home and we started working remotely. A study done by Ponemon Institute showed that before the pandemic, only 22% of the employees worked from home, whereas right now that number went up to 58%. So how good is your security at home and how reliable is it? Online criminals have started to take advantage of this. They're developing more advanced attack methods. So who haven't received a spam or a phishing email over COVID-19? They send you a link, you click on it, you enter your credentials, and you get compromised in many different ways. Cybersecurity experts, they changed their mode of employment. They're not after big companies anymore. They're after companies of all sizes and all industries. So if you have important data or information that's worth protecting, then you are at risk. You are an attractive target to those hackers. Security is very important now more than ever. 51% of the companies have experienced a security incident in the past 2 years. So you as a CIO or director of IT, you are in fear. You are in fear of getting hit by malware. You are in fear of the unknown. Not only the technical fear, but there is also the financial fear that comes with it. Do you as a company have the time and the resource to respond to those attacks when they occur? What about your team? Do they have the skills and the knowledge to fight those advanced attacks and fileless attacks? If the answer to this question is no, then don't worry. We're here to help you. We're here to protect you and your data in a cost-effective way. I always get really excited when I talk about our achievements in the past 35 years of being in the cybersecurity industry. So we got won and recognized many times from independent companies that do testing on weekly and monthly basis. And we have won the Best Protection Award from AV-Test. Not only that, for our endpoint detection and response, which is fairly new, we have participated in 2019 to MITRE ATT&CK tests, and we scored really, really high there. We have also been evaluated for the 3rd round of testing, and our scores look really, really good. So this success is really a joint effort. From F-Secure's side, technical engineers and cybersecurity experts, who, by the way, have participated in more European cyber scenes than any other vendors in the market. To our great MSPs like Netcotech, who are working around the clock to make sure that you are safe and your information are safe. Cybersecurity is a 24/7 job. It's too big and complex for any of us to do alone. This is why F-Secure and Netcotech are working 24/7 to make sure that you guys are protected from the most advanced threats. So now I will hand it over to Tim so he can talk about our cloud offerings and show you how you can manage all of our products through a single managing portal.
Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Tim Roberts. I am one of the sales engineers here for F-Secure, handling the F-Secure portfolio, essentially the technical go-to guy for rollouts and customer and partner services. So I am going to talk a little bit about the IT toolbox. My background is actually in IT prior to F-Secure, and I'm celebrating my 6th year this December, in fact. Prior to that, I was in IT, so I'm quite familiar with the pains that we are going through, and I'll mention probably multiple times in this presentation, for example, the Log4j vulnerability, which pretty much, that might even be why some people couldn't attend today because of that vulnerability, and we're running around trying to remediate that issue. So the remote workforce has introduced quite a lot or quite many number of new problems that we're trying to solve, that IT is trying to resolve. When we look at this picture here, we're seeing that the Security Center, which is one of F-Secure's centralized, centrally managed dashboard, where we get security telemetry collecting from our agents installed to the various environments. With Elements, we actually have 3 main components built into a single agent. And this is really a key concept that we want to leave today understanding, that with the Elements agent, you can have 1 or 2 or all 3 of these capabilities without installing any additional software or any additional agents. And we'll start with endpoint protection. Think of this as your traditional endpoint protection for antivirus capability. Now, recently, over the last several years now, technology has brought us what we call endpoint detection and response. And very simply, this is allowing us to automatically detect the more human-based attacks and automatically isolate the environment, breaking the command and control connection and potentially reconnaissance activity that might be occurring inside an organization that experiences a breach. Now, the third component in that single agent, we're bringing vulnerability management. Vulnerability management in recent light with this Log4j is critical, and this is what our IT folks are scrambling to resolve, identify these vulnerabilities around Log4j with a tool like vulnerability management. The beauty here is that you do have these, you can, as said, you can get individually or all three in the single agent if you are only looking for endpoint protection and later decide that you would like to leverage the vulnerability management capability. It's a simple matter of enabling that without reinstalling. The other protection that we're bringing into this single pane of glass management console that we call the Security Center, Element Security Center, is the ability to collect and view security incidents in that single pane of glass from your, if you're using Office 365, which is the very popular cloud collaboration tool, including your mail exchange services and the other file collaboration capability. The issue is that if we're not protecting that content, we can not only put the entire organization at risk through the use of that shared content within that ecosystem, but you also potentially put your customers or partners at risk as well. So let's take a quick look under the hood about, or in the specific part of the technology stack, the endpoint protection component. In the endpoint protection, and we can think of this as your AV component. Now we are in addition to traditional AV, signature-based AV, we're bringing a lot more to the technology stack that is giving you what the industry would call the next generation capabilities. So for example, starting with the top three there, DeepGuard, which is essentially a behavior-based heuristic analysis looking at the unknown threats. Unknown threats are things that you wouldn't have a signature for. WannaCry is a perfect example of a zero-day type of threat where it took some time for the security vendors to build a signature and then automatically detect that threat. Whereas if you're using something like DeepGuard, you will have the ability to look at that process or file and see what it's doing if it's acting maliciously and have the ability to detect and contain that. DataGuard is the portion of our technology stack having to do with ransomware protection, which is a huge worrisome problem for IT organizations today, still becoming increasingly prevalent. Threat intelligence, given that F-Secure's been in this industry for more than 30 years now, we've accumulated one of the largest threat databases on the planet. We're looking at somewhere between 500 and 900,000 new samples per day. And those samples, you are actually getting that latest threat intelligence to your endpoints if you have F-Secure agents installed. Advanced web protection is really aimed at protecting the end user from their online work. So for example, if you want to prevent users from going to business unrelated websites, maybe whether it's online gambling or adult content or other things that are unwork related, that can be controlled with the advanced web protection. So websites blocked based on category. If we look at application control, traditionally this is one of my favorite capabilities, the ability to have visibility to what applications are installed on a given machine. Further, I actually have the ability to disallow or explicitly allow. You could have a very strict policy of applications, or you could have a very open application, yet you can still have visibility to what is being used in terms of software on those endpoints. And device control similarly will give you the capability to control what devices can be used by a given machine. And we've seen some quite clever implementations of this capability. For example, one of our partners gave me the scenario that they were using where they created a profile, and if we think basically a profile is the container of all the settings that are configured in a custom way towards the users or the department. So you might have an HR department, an IT department, and so on and so forth throughout the organization, and custom tailor those profiles with the security needs of the given users. To the device control scenario that I thought was pretty clever is they had an offboarding where they had a profile that would disable the keyboard, the mouse pad, all the USB ports, even the network interface, and essentially you could turn the laptop on, but you couldn't access it. And this was whether the employee would leave willingly or unwillingly, maybe it was a lost asset or a stolen device. Kind of an interesting use case for device control. Patch management is one of the capabilities that our customers really appreciate, because in some cases, you're actually filling if you're already using some software that you might be licensed for to handle your patch management, we have seen scenarios where they have elected to drop that service and use the F-Secure patch management capability. This is really important and a critical operation for IT services today, because, for example, statistically, security researchers will tell us that if we just do a good job doing patch management across our Windows platforms, we could reduce our attack surface by 80%. Real statistic. Then managed firewall. So we're not introducing any new firewall that you would have to learn. This is essentially, we're wrapping our user interface around the Windows firewall or the Mac firewall. Therefore, you can actually centrally manage and create policy that's relevant to the folks that are in the various departments, or maybe even working from home in light of COVID. And then last but not least, we do, in addition to our own heuristics and our own detection technology and algorithms, we've implemented a third-party engine, which combined together is really giving us the award-winning solution that our endpoint protection is today. So I've talked, in this picture, I've talked about the endpoint protection component. And this is something separate that you can have separately. However, what we're seeing today is there is a strong gravity toward also having detection and response capability in the toolbox. And detection and response, or so-called endpoint detection and response, is bringing a solution to a very different problem. Whereas on the left side of the screen, what you're seeing is your file-based attack detection. We're also having in our that's the endpoint protection, where you have the software updater, the application control, and deep guard for the behavior-based analysis. On this side, you have a very different attack anatomy, and it may be a multi-phased attack that might have where an attacker breaches a particular machine and wants to move laterally or do reconnaissance, along with the command and control connection on the outside of your organization. Those are the kinds of attacks that we're looking for and we're trying to detect with the detection and response capability. The agent, the same agent that is the endpoint protection, has this capability built in. And what we're doing is we're collecting millions and millions of events, almost in what we could call a smart threat hunting platform. And then from those detections, we churn those events into actionable detections. And those, many times those detections are things that you would expect. For example, if you're doing vulnerability management in your own organization, I want to see that because an attacker would do the same thing in your organization. So as a detection, I will still see that. The next picture here that I'm showing is our vulnerability management component. Again, this is yet a separate. This is something that you can get a la carte, or you can get this built into the single agent. You can have all three of those solutions and your cloud protection together if you wanted to have all of those. Vulnerability management is critically important today, especially with this new detection that we had as of the 10th of December. The world of IT is really running around quite viciously trying to remediate the vulnerability on things like public-facing targets. Web servers are particularly vulnerable. Anything with a browser, I strongly encourage you to do a little bit of investigation if you haven't heard of the Log4j vulnerability. The world is affected, and this particular tool is one way that you can detect and find this vulnerability in your organization, not only for your public-facing targets, but also internally, maybe behind your firewall. We want to make sure that all of the assets, whether it's a wireless access point or some IoT device, maybe it's the IP phone system that you're using, or maybe it's the surveillance cameras on the outside of the building, or the RFID systems that you use to open and lock doors throughout the business. So vulnerability management is really giving you a full management platform with a built-in ticketing system, giving you visibility and historical views of this. And I can show this a little bit when we open up the actual user interface here in just a moment. And the fourth component of F-Secure elements, when we think about the security events that are coming into the security center, we can also receive telemetry from Office 365. Here, what we have the ability to do is detect advanced threats. So similar to, let's say, an E5 license, we have the ability to do a sandbox detonation of a file that makes its way into your Office 365 ecosystem. We can take the copy of that file, detonate it in our sandbox, and pass back a verdict and know whether or not we should quarantine or allow or disallow that file within your Office 365 ecosystem. Additionally, you're exchanging mail through the system. So we want to check all of those mails through the exchange to protect not only your users, but your customers and your partners and other individuals that you're sending and transacting mail. So inbound and outbound mail are covered, not only from malicious files, but also from malicious URLs, for example, in a spear phishing campaign where an attacker sends your organization an email trying to lure your users into clicking on a link in that email. That can be detected by our solution here. One noteworthy point about this solution is you do not have to change anything with your mail routing. So it takes about 5 minutes to connect our security cloud to an Office 365 instance, and you're done. Then you can select which users you want to protect. Maybe it can be some of them or all of them. It's really up to you. Some other additional capability worth mentioning is the compromised account detection, where in this case, an attacker has several means to obtain compromised accounts. Maybe they go to the dark web, for example, where they can literally purchase email or accounts potentially from your organization. With that, from the dark web, it's quite possible that they also have the password, in which case they may get into the account, try to operate without being detected and potentially change, or maybe they create some inbox rules, some automated rules to forward off their email to a mailbox that they can control and maintain to collect those emails, which would contain signatures from your senior executives or the accounting folks, and you can imagine where an attack might progress from there. So the idea here is we can alert in that security center when accounts like that are compromised. And then, of course, there's public data streams where breaches are disclosed to the public, and we look at those data streams as well and would alert the administrator and the user about compromised accounts in those cases. I also mentioned that sort of in that particular scenario, you have the ability to identify suspicious inbox rules. This is another protection layer that the Office 365 has built in, is the ability to detect suspicious inbox rules for that very reason. Okay, let's take a quick peek, and this isn't going to be a full demo, but I will highlight a few of the key features. I'll move through it quite quickly. Some of it will be non-technical, that most of the solution is very intuitive. When I start talking about the EDR capability, we really have a very granular view at events, and I might get a little bit technical there, but it will be a summary. There's quite a lot more that I can share, more than what I will share today, but this will be just kind of a nice high-level overview to give you a sense of what the user interface and the user experience will be like. Actually, I should be more specific, and we'll call that the administrator's experience. So let's take a look. Okay, so I've already logged in to my organization in my security center for my particular company that I'm using as a test environment. And what I have with the navigation menu over on the left here is a home button. And this is giving you the summary of the aforementioned parts of the agent. So specifically, I mean the endpoint protection, detection and response, vulnerability management, and the Office 365 protection. And then on the left side, right side, we have a summary widget where we'll display any of the security events or a summary of security events for each of those respectively. And as mentioned earlier again, and I'll reiterate, remember that these three here, the endpoint protection, the EDR, and the vulnerability management, are just one single agent, but you at the same time could get one or two or all three if you wanted. And then the Office 365 protection here is really not an agent, but rather connecting our two clouds, basically the Office 365 cloud to our security cloud. Once we open up each of these individuals, we'll have a very similar navigation menu for each of these respectively, starting with a dashboard that gives you the high-level overview of what's happening with your endpoint protection overall. How many computers you're managing, devices total with respect to the software updates. Mobile devices are also protected within this ecosystem, and then some actionable items, maybe it's security updates and what have you. The device view gives you visibility to all the devices. I can intelligently search among these devices and have a smaller list of actionable items, whether I want to initiate a scan for malware, I want to maybe install software updates, assign a new profile. And remember from earlier that I mentioned we have the ability to customize these profiles so that the security posture is configurable or you can tailor it to the given department, which I think is critical. Obviously, the IT folks and on their laptops will have a wildly different security posture than, let's say, accounting. So actionable items there. I particularly like to highlight the software update capability. This was, updating software was the bane of my existence when I was doing IT. We had a lot of remote workers and sales guys out in the field that would occasionally visit the office, but not always. And very often they would have a habit of just closing the laptop, hitting the snooze button to push away the updates. But in this case, you can either have a manual approach to taking care of the updates or a forceful automatic way. And you can do this in a somewhat granular and very selective way. So I can create a profile that says, I'm going to automatically update everybody on Wednesday, and I'm only going to do that for critical software updates. So there's a very configurable way that we can handle those updates. In this case, I might show that, well, hey, here we have some critical updates. I can see which devices are missing that, because this is across my whole ecosystem. This is across my whole organization. I can say, okay, which ones are missing this? And now it gives me a list of devices that are missing those patches. I can then select those devices and say, okay, go ahead and update those. And as you would expect, there's still more that I can show. I'm going to stop with the endpoint protection and move to the EDR, but there's still automatic reports. We have the ability to configure and customize these profiles. These are our install packages, some support resources, the ability to create and have additional administrators, security events detail from here, and the like. Now, we're now going into the solution that is endpoint detection or response. Again, single agent. This is where you can have one or just endpoint protection or just EDR. This is what we would have. Now I'm going to go right to a detection, and the key concepts, the key value with a detection response tool that you want is, number one, you have the ability to look at an attack, even if the attacked machine is disabled in a way that I can't investigate that machine. Maybe I can't log in because the attacker has disabled the account and I can't log in. Or maybe it is subject to a ransomware or encrypted file system. If you're using our endpoint protection, the attacker probably won't get that far, and we would trap that in many ways. But the point here is detection and response gives you visibility and log information, process information, which you'll see here in a moment, about that type of attack. So let's take a quick look at some detections. So I think I have just a couple of detections, and I'm going to look at one that I generated recently that is very simply a reconnaissance activity. So a reconnaissance activity might be anything from running Nmap or some utility that from the machine that's already inside your organization, the attacker is manipulating that machine. Maybe the end user has executed a script, which is what this will illustrate. And again, this is where it gets a little bit more technical. This is where your IT folks are definitely going to appreciate having the visibility into the anatomy of an attack, especially if the attacked machine is somehow not accessible, or maybe it's completely isolated and nobody wants to touch it. You have a place to come, look at some log information. I can open up the process tree and really see what's happened. We can see that I've created a batch file, and this is the batch file that was run. I can see who or which user ran that file. So there's a lot of information that even on an intuitive level, I can see that, I know what this file is. I could take that file and say, hey, go back to my endpoint protection and prevent that file name from being available or block that file based on name. And again, this is the abbreviated demo. It's not a full demo, but let's now take a look at the vulnerability management. Now, in the context of Log4j, the huge, huge vulnerability, what I really wanted to point out is how easy it is on the servers. For example, you deploy our endpoint protection onto the servers, then guess what? I can go to, in the vulnerability management view, go to device discovery, see all the machines that have endpoint protection, and select all of those machines and start scanning. Now, what am I doing? But what does it mean to scan? It means that you're looking at or for known vulnerabilities on that device, and the devices can vary wildly. In this particular view, we're just talking about endpoints, and I can do those scans. Then I get my scan results under the vulnerability. And in the case of Log4j, what I did was we can look at the entire coverage, basically everything that we can find. And what I've done, just to give you some understanding of what Log4, like how large the scope of Log4j is, there's a few here. So what I've done is I said, okay, what is our vulnerability coverage? I created a filter, and I'm filtering all of the vulnerabilities that we can detect specifically for Log4j vulnerabilities. And this is what we can find. And you can see there's already public exploits available for these, which we really need to mitigate. If I open these up, I can then see the instructions of basically what do I need to do as my IT organization to remediate that vulnerability. And last but not least, Office 365 protection. I can reveal, again, and I am repeating myself a little bit here, when I open a policy and we look at the configuration settings for those, we're just basically highlighting that we can do a malware scan throughout that whole ecosystem, whether it's SharePoint or whether it is something exchanging through email. We'll scan that email and have a automatically quarantined alert appropriately, and then build those alerts into reporting as you would expect. Then URL scanning, obviously a critical component to the security of transacting data throughout our ecosystems. Then the inbox rules scanning, again, this is really one of the clever tactics that attackers will use to go in, modify inbox rules on a given account to forward email, and then they cover their tracks by going and removing those email boxes. And they can do that in a cleverly automated way as to work hard in going undetected. So this is really adding value to that capability. And then the compromised accounts, again, if an account is compromised, not only is the administrator notified via an alert and the security center, of course, but also the end user is notified and given appropriate steps to take action, change your password or what is necessary from there. All right, now that concludes my overview with this. I think that, you know, with all of these endpoints throughout the globe, we're really collecting millions upon millions upon millions of threat data, and really this telemetry is used to improve our capability. Along with our consulting team, we are doing red team operations, and all of these folks are combining this data and really building the best of breed solution for our IT folks out there. And at this point, I think I'm going to hand it over to Mike. And thank you for listening. I look forward to, hopefully I will get an opportunity to take you deeper into an exploration of our solution, full demo. At the end, you'll see contact information on how to arrange for that. Mike, over to you.
Thanks, Tim. Really appreciate the teeing me up there. Hi, everybody. My name is Mike Rutledge. I am the North American team lead for representing F-Secure's managed detection and response service known as Countercept. I'm very happy to be here today to discuss how my team works very closely with Gideon at Netcotech and how we truly stop attacks before they stop us. And as you'll see on the next slide, what the key point that I want to deliver today is that Countercept and our detection response service really delivers value every day to support each step of the cybersecurity cycle. Our business cases, we provide business cases for investments and for investments on your C-level executives, provide incident response readiness and remediation support, compliance support, and most importantly, cloud support out of all of the things that we do. As Tim so kindly illustrated, the technology that goes into the service is really, really top notch. But what really brings the service to light is the people that the Countercept division can provide. In many cases, when I'm working with Gideon and he has some needs or some of his clients need support, we're always looking at what's their challenges. And the biggest challenge is alerts, alert fatigue that gets thrown over the fence in many cases when something comes into play. And where F-Secure comes in is we provide really dedicated assurance folks. So known as our detection and response team or our security operations center, they provide first response monitoring to our clients in real time. So what that means is they're looking at the client's environment through the alerts that are coming in and investigations from Office 365, the endpoint agent that's deployed on their Windows, Mac, Linux devices, whatever cloud environment you're sitting in, and triaging those alerts in real time. We're not just throwing alerts or investigations over the fence. We're doing this for you as part of the agreement that we have with you. Lastly, and most importantly, what we provide is detecting those alerts, investigating them, and then triaging them. What brings our service to a full circle is a fully SLA incident response retainer. So that allows us to provide our clients with the peace of mind, one, that they have an incident response retainer, but also if something escalates to the next level, we have the consultancy and expertise to help those organizations and to stay secure and to do forensics investigations right away. Lastly, we do what we also provide to our clients to keep them secure in the future is threat intelligence and threat hunting among all of their estates. Taking all of the telemetry from the millions of endpoints that we have deployed, improving our service and telling our clients what we learned from one another in order helping them stay secure. As you'll see in the next slide, we truly do provide a 24/7, 365 detection and response service. And what that really means is our MDR customers have the benefit of active threat hunting and expertise of advanced operators within the F-Secure detection and response team, 24/7. This means instead of knowing for a known indicator of compromise to arise or to be detected, our team will be able to go out, explicitly look for current methodologies, tactics, bad things, techniques, and procedures in use by threat actors around the world today. The service, of course, knows to look for the known bads, knows how to work around the known goods, but what we're really looking for is those gray areas, and that's how we give back to the cybersecurity community, identifying new threats and keeping our customers secure. Lastly, in our next slide, I will give you a quick understanding of how our first response methodology is unique. What's really important is, and as Tim mentioned, the ease of deployment is super quick and easy. It takes days, not months. A proof of value is instant. All 4 stages of our first response methodology are performed by our threat hunters based out of 3 locations worldwide. These threat hunters are really nurtured and well taken care of. Really, really important to note out, the purpose of our business, of my specific division, is telling you that providing you really good people that know what they're doing, who really care about giving back to the community. And these folks have 5+ years experience in the information security space with pen testing experience, incident response, and the ability and interest to do research. And that's how we keep those folks staying at F-Secure. Our attrition rate is less than 5%, which is extremely rare in the marketplace when you have someone looking at a screen 24/7, 365. Well, we don't do that. We give our threat hunters the abilities to spend 50% of the time threat hunting, the rest of the time developing the detection service the technology, investigating alerts, and responding to incidents, as well as doing a ton of research, which really makes them happy. Every day, detection code is being created, refined, replaced, and about 20% of our detection code and technology is replaced every quarter. On a typical month across the whole of our Countercept customer base, we investigate thousands of alerts, and only 10% of which are verified as incidents, which we're able to triage immediately. Lastly, in the next slide, I want to reiterate that we are a true partnership and a true partnership with Netco Tech. Our core goal is extending the skills and capabilities and efficacy of your existing team. We're not looking to replace at all, but to augment your organization and give you the ability to work on what's important to you and focus on the projects you have at hand. So we're reducing the number of detection alerts generated by also ensuring that any alerts that are sent over to your team that wake you up in the middle of the night are going to be actionable, as nobody likes to chase false positives. In conclusion, on my last slide, I would like to just talk about how we work very closely again with Gideon and some of the initial conversations that we have. Conversations where clients go to Gideon and ask him, what do I do about this current vulnerability? How can I know if I'm affected? We often come in and bring in our consulting team, who I work with very closely, providing easy, simple assessments that provide them with some type of tangible roadmap for next steps. To this end, F-Secure's consultants utilize the same data that our threat hunters do. So in the unlikely event that they're called in, they would be able to hit the ground running. The reality is that the overwhelming majority of findings that we discover are handled remotely as part of our first response services in concert with your existing staff. So we allow the incident response to be deployed when and where applicable. Lastly, I'm going to close off on what I really want to point out and re-stress is the fact that we're providing a full solution where we want to put the majority of the responsibility for detection and response on us. It's about being able to make sure that we have the right people with the right tools in the right place at the right time. With that, I'll hand it back. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Michael. Tim, we have questions. I sent it to you. One of them is we're talking about how long it takes to do the setup for the system. It doesn't take that long. Again, it's just only an agent we install on the system. If you have a network with a domain controller, we can push it as soon as a few minutes. Everything will be up and running. Even if you have a previous install of a different security, will also be uninstalled, and will take over. We also have other questions. Tim, you want to take that questions?
Sure, we can take some questions.
I sent you on chat.
Okay, let's see.
I can read it for you if you want to.
So we have, sorry, Gideon, let's see, what was the question? Which one? Can you explain it?
Yeah, can you explain? Yeah.
Can you explain an instance where a business with remote workers was affected by a security breach? What happened and what was the outcome? Let's see. So an instance where remote workers, I'm not sure if this is really directed for Michael or for me. I mean, just in short, when we think about the remote worker, there's only a few things that are different. So to be honest, I mean, I'm trying to think of a time where somebody who has the F-Secure solution was affected, but I'm not thinking of any. And this is going to sound a little sales pitchy, but I'm not. I'm an IT guy, but it's usually another vendor that gets hit. So they're saying, okay, in this situation, this is what happened. For example, the one recent conversation I had was around, and I won't mention the vendor. It was a spoofed email. It was basically an image saying that they had this other vendor, and they were supposed to renew. It said, hey, well, I'll just say it because it's a known attack. It was a semantic, looked like a semantic email saying, we want you paid, we charged you $299. If you choose not to renew, if you choose not to, I forget the verbiage, it was obviously a social engineering attack as well, but to call this number. So the user called the number, and then they took control over this. They basically took a remote access to the machine. Now, how does F-Secure, what can F-Secure do to remediate that or mitigate that attack? Is we actually have specifically designed capability under web protection where we are looking for those remote services, those remote desktop services. And if you are going to those kinds of websites, what can happen is the browsing protection will automatically enable something called connection control, which is basically closing off anything that might be a banking website, isolating and only allowing HTTPS connections. And then we actually give the user a warning. If you are talking to somebody, and I wish I had an image, I could show a quick image, but we do well understand that social engineering attack, and it's really difficult to mitigate that attack because it's just a picture, right? So now what we also can do is if you're using Office 365 protection, we're looking for those senders who have poor reputation scores. So if it's coming from a domain that we know is either a spammer or malicious emails come from those domains, then we can block, and that'll end up in the quarantine. So we have seen that. And then lastly, it's very easy to submit those samples, and our samples get turned around very quickly, in maybe as fast as 30 minutes, where we will start blocking that particular email, even if it's something that's brand new, potentially a sender that has no reputation, so it manages to come through. But really interesting attack. And I don't know if Mike has some experience from your side.
Two very quick examples. We had one client recently who opened up a phishing email, and he downloaded a known malicious file. We were able to open up his computer. It was an actually unknown malicious file. He went on vacation for about a week, so he shut down his computer. And really what was interesting is during that week, as I was mentioning before, our threat hunters are always doing research on new threats. When he popped open his computer the following week, we were able to see the malicious file on his computer and able to isolate his computer from the environment and delete it right away. Really, like it's really interesting here, and that was a Countercept client. We also had a client that came from an incident response situation where if he would have had Countercept deployed, we wouldn't have had such a bad incident. This happened at the beginning of COVID about a year ago, where we had a developer living in New York City. He was working from home. He was connected to his home Wi-Fi, and he didn't properly close down his MacBook. He didn't shut it down, and it didn't sleep properly. So when the MacBook dropped off of VPN due to a poor VPN configuration, which is something that Gideon can help support, a malicious actor was able to get into this client's laptop, which when he was employed for a large education platform, it was able to exfiltrate approximately 3,000 student records. So that led to a big forensics investigation. We had to pull files and data from his MacBook. But these are two examples where something very simple like that, where someone was hands-on keyboard on this client's environment, we would have seen it, whether we was on VPN or just connected to the natural Wi-Fi.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Just we want to mention at the end of it, we want to thank for sure F-Secure for coming up and giving us all this information. If we go to the last slide, and we can see that we also offering for all the attendees today a free 3 months of services. It's not just an F-Secure, because F-Secure is one part, and I would say one important part of having a security for remote users. But it's not just F-Secure. You need more stuff to configure, more security. There's also the setup, the environment. It's all of it as a one package. This is why we are offering 3 months of free services, fully IT services, including F-Secure and Office 365 and all the options you have. This way you can have the security you need to try the service before you go on. So you have our email at sales@Thetcotech. You can call us directly, and we also will contact every attendee individually, and we will ask them, and we will make sure they get the right information they need to start if they want to go with a 3 months free services. If there's no more questions, if all good, we will thank everyone for attending, and we can close the session, and we wish everyone a happy weekend.
Thank you, Gideon. Thank you for having us, and please reach out to Gideon with any additional questions. Happy holidays, Al.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.